Okay, so this is just a breakdown of things that we'll be going over today. Your first stop is with me with financial terms. Then we'll be talking about how to pay for college and then specific costs within college. And then we'll talk about budgeting. Okay, financial terms. All right, guys, so I just chose a few terms that you may or may not have heard of, but these will really kind of be diving into a little bit more over the next few slides. So the first one we have is asset, and that can be any resource, either tangible or intangible, something that you owned or is controlled, something that holds value. So a budget keyword is a plan for using income to meet your financial obligations. Comparison shopping is something that you probably already do and don't realize that you're doing, but it's a strategy that consumers use to save money on purchases. So that's just you comparing prices and then buying the better deal. Principal, which is the amount of money due on a loan before interest is added. An annual percentage rate is an annual, well, it's it stands for APR. It is a yearly interest rate charged on borrowed money. Default happens when a borrower is unable to meet the obligation of paying back debt. And interest is a percentage of a loan principal that the lenders charge borrowers. So interest is what it costs to take out a loan. Okay, guys, we're gonna stop here at reading your pay stub. Now, a pay stub usually comes attached with your paycheck. If you get a physical paycheck, it's gonna actually be attached to it. You rip it off before you cash your check. And some people don't even pay attention to that other piece of paper. Well, that's your pay stub. If you get paid direct deposit, you'll either get your pay stub in the form of it being mailed to you physically or it being emailed to you in some way. But a pay stub is essentially a summary of all the amounts on your paycheck. It is just breaking down and telling you how much is going to who out of your paycheck. So here we go. Number one, and your pay stub may look a little bit different than this one, but it all has the same information on it. So number one is your employee name. That's your name and address. And number two is the company name and address. And it's really important that your name and your address and the company's name and address is right and correct for tax and IRS purposes. Number three is your identifying information. That could be your employee ID and or your social security number. Number four is your pay type, excuse me. That basically says, are you paid hourly or are you paid salary? Number five is your pay date. That is the day that you receive your check. So you could actually maybe get your check a day after, or if you have direct deposit, you could get actually paid a day before. You may be getting paid a little early, but on your pay stub is going to have your pay date. Number six is your pay period. So that's just telling you how much you're getting paid within that given time of work. So if you get paid every 2 weeks on your pay stub, it's going to have a summary of what's on your paycheck from those 2 weeks. And then number seven will tell you how many hours you've worked during that pay time, that pay period, excuse me. Okay. Number seven is your pay rate. That will affect how gross pay is determined. Gross pay is your earnings before taxes are taken out, which leads us to number eight, which is your gross pay. It's your full amount. Like I said, it's your full amount of what you've earned before any taxes, any deductions are taken out of it. And it's usually a higher number than what you end up taking home. I know, sad face. Number nine is taxes. And if you were like me when I first opened my, very first paycheck, I was wondering, who the heck is FICA and why is he taking all this money from me? Well, FICA, guys, it stands for Federal Insurance Contributions Act. So basically, they are responsible for taking out two types of deductions from your paycheck, and that is Medicare and Social Security. And then after that, number 10, you have other optional deductions that may be taken out from your paycheck. Number 11 is net pay. That is the money that you get to take home. So I like to think of it as a safe, or not a safety net, but your net, you're catching fish. That's what you get to take home. Number 12 is employer taxes. This does not, in fact, impact your net pay at all. This is just telling you how much taxes, how much money your employer is paying into those taxes. Number 13 is employer contributions to you. So if they are paying into maybe a life insurance for you or health insurance or anything like that, it's going to tell you how much your employer is contributing to that, giving to you. Are there any questions, any concerns, anything that wasn't really clear about pay stubs? If not, we will continue on this journey. All right, guys, so bank accounts. There are different kinds of bank accounts out there other than just checking and savings, but we're going to focus on checking and savings because those are the two that are going to impact you most coming out of high school and going into being in college. So your checking account, think of it as your money hub, right? So money is coming in, it's going into this hub, and then it's coming out as you spend it. So how to open a checking account is find a bank that is right for you. You're going to make an initial deposit into your checking account. Some banks require a minimum, some banks require different numbers, different amounts. So make sure you do your research. And some banks will actually charge you a monthly fee if the balance dips too low. So definitely keep out a lookout for that and read that fine print. When you do get your checking account, the bank will issue you a debit card. And it is your choice whether or not you have paper checks. But these two things are connected to your bank account or your checking account, excuse me. Whereas things like a money order isn't connected to your bank account, and it is guaranteed. Now, a savings account is a little different in the form of money doesn't really go out as frequently. It's really going to sit there. It's going to become what I like to call your little nest egg. So money comes in, it sits in your nest egg, and then it actually grows. It earns interest. Now, interest may not be a lot, and I'll show you that in a minute. A lot of banks' percentages are kind of low, which is fine. Just do your research and find one that's right for you. You open up a savings account pretty much the same way you open up a checking account, and I recommend doing them at the same time. But choose the right one, make an initial deposit. Some banks are different amounts, so definitely keep a lookout for that. All right, so now we're going to look at how your money can grow in your savings account. So Ms. Raven, if you can take us to that savings calculator. And this is a little website called bankrate.com, this little savings calculator. It is great. It'll tell you how much you can save within any given time with any kind of interest rate. So let's look at it. Let's say I want to make an initial deposit of $100. I wish I could do 10,000. That would be amazing, but I can't. 100. Let's say on a monthly basis out of my budget, I'm going to contribute $25 a month over a course of 12 months, so a year. Now that APY down there is your interest rate. So let's say I have an interest rate of 0.01. Let's calculate. So over here on the other side, there you go. Over there on the right, it'll tell you exactly what's happening with my savings. All right, so the interest earned is 0.02. It's not all that a lot. The total contributions that I put towards my savings was $300. My initial deposit was that $100, and over the course of 12 months, I saved $400.02 because of my interest. Because of my interest, I got that extra 2 cents. But that's what I mean when I say it's not a big addition, but interest can add up and help you out over time. All right, let's head back to the Yellow Brick Road. Okay, so now we're going to look at some wins and some things to watch for when it comes to checking and savings accounts. So some wins for checking accounts is direct deposit, and I've mentioned it several times. If you can do it, I strongly suggest that you do. Direct deposit is when an employer will take your paycheck and bypass giving you a paper check and you having to go to the bank and cash it. It goes straight into your checking account. Another handy thing with checking accounts is automatic bill pay. So if you're like me and you tend to forget things maybe that are due, i.e. bills, automatic bill pay will save you so much time and money. So if you forget, you can go ahead and have maybe it's your utilities, have your utilities connected straight to your bank account, and on due day, bill time, that money will be pulled straight from your account. There's also online banking. I, for one, have Wells Fargo. I have their app and it's so handy. A lot of banks have apps now to where if you do have a paper check, you don't have to go to the bank. All you have to do is take a picture of it and boom, that money is deposited into that account. Checking accounts also make budgeting a lot easier just for the fact that you can sit there and see your money go to, different places. So if there's something that you really don't need to be spending money on each month, you can see it and maybe make adjustments. Now, some things to watch for when it comes to checking accounts are hidden fees, and definitely avoid banks that charge a monthly maintenance fee or a fee to maintain a certain balance. All right, so some wins for a savings account, again, is direct deposit. So some people may not know this, but your employer, just like your checking account direct deposit, you can have your employer deposit a portion of your paycheck into your savings account. Also, savings account is a great way to start an emergency fund for yourself. So if you have a vehicle, or a pet even, or maybe yourself, something that comes up that you unexpected, need to pay for, savings account is a great place to start. Like I said before, in a savings account, your money will earn interest. No, it's not a lot of money, but it is money you didn't have before. And savings account are nearly risk-free. When you do choose a bank, make sure that you choose a bank that is insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. All this means is that if anything was to happen with the economy, with the bank, if they got robbed or anything like that, your money is insured by them up to $250,000. Now, some things to watch for: hidden fees in savings accounts. Avoid banks that charge a fee if your balance dips below a certain amount. Check to confirm withdrawal policies. Some banks have a policy on how much you can withdraw at a given time. And some banks can actually charge you money to transfer, money from your savings account to different accounts. So just make sure to be mindful of that. Oh, credit. All right, so what is credit? Well, credit allows you to buy items that you probably couldn't afford otherwise. And I'm talking big purchases here, car purchases, or houses, or maybe you're even at your education. These are big things that people usually just don't have the cash for in their pocket to pay for up front. So you get credit, you buy it on credit. So there's different forms of credit, mortgages, personal loans, credit cards. And credit cards, for one, are great to have when a small emergency comes up, or just to build up your own credit, but you really have to be careful with them. I, for one, don't have one because I know myself. So I don't have one. And many people put strong limits on credit cards. So recurring payments, they might have their credit card set up to pay those recurring payments, like streaming services or your utilities. And good rule of thumb, guys, is please don't ever save your credit card information on those fill in the blank, save your credit card information things when you're shopping. I know it's super convenient, but it just makes, life a lot easier for the hackers, and let's not do that. All right, so comparing your cost for credit when you're looking to get a credit card or a loan. There's a couple of things you want to look at. You want to look at your interest rate. So this is the cost of borrowing that loan. It's always going to be in a percentage. And then you have your annual percentage rate. Now, these things are two different things. Okay, you have your interest rate, and then you have your APR. Your interest rate is that cost of the loan. Your APR is going to be the cost of the whole entire cost of taking out the loan. Stay with me. All right, let's hit that APR calculator and show it. Okay, this handy little thing is going to tell me how much my APR is going to be by my loan information that I give it. So we're going to say I need to take out a loan for my, let's say books. I need books and supplies. So I want to take out a $5,000 loan. So finance charges, it could be optional. This is just like if there's any cost that, did you have to pay someone to take out this loan? Like any extra cost of taking it out. So for argument's sake, let's say $100. I have an interest rate of 5% on my loan. And I'm going to pay this off within 10 years. Okay, let's see what my APR is going to look like. All right. So my APR is actually going to be 5.43%. Now, my original interest rate is 5%. So my interest rate is 5% of taking out that loan, but my APR is going to be a little bit more because that's the cost of the whole entire loan. That's the cost of how much it takes to take out the whole thing. This little handy dandy thing will actually break it down even more and tell me how much my payments are going to be roughly. The number of payments I'll be paying into, my payoff date, the total interest paid into it, how much interest I'm just paying, and then the total payments and the total cost of that loan. So the total cost of my $5,000 loan is actually $6,363 and some change. So the whole point is if you're taking out a $5,000 loan, you're not exactly just paying $5,000 back. It's going to add up. So make sure you do your research on that. All right, let's head back. Okay, credit reports and scores. All right, so credit reports has 4 things on it. It has your personal information, your summary of financial accounts, the history of credit checks, who has checked your credit, and then public records like bankruptcies and liens, which I did not know was public until doing this. But a credit report is useful when you are buying a car or a house or what have you. Those lenders will pull a credit report and actually look at your credit report and see how likely you are to default on a loan. Now, your credit score will tell them the same thing in numbers. So this is a 3-digit number from 300 to 850, 850 being the greatest. And on that graphic right there, it'll tell you exactly what goes into determining your credit score. Okay, so let's talk about how to earn credit and how to improve it. So earning credit, it does take time, but consistently paying bills on time helps a lot. So if you could possibly get like a cosigner on something, I know a lot of people don't have that ability, but if you could, that's a way to gain credit. A credit card's a way to gain credit. Okay. So if you already have not so good credit, and a way to improve it is, first of all, get your credit report, see what's going on, dispute any errors on that credit report, and then your score could possibly go up from that. So things that aren't included on your credit score is utilities are typically not included, and all payments, doesn't matter what you're paying into, but though if it is going to be on your credit score or go towards your credit score, it has to be reported to credit bureaus. Whew, I know it was a lot of information, but do we have any questions, concerns, life aspirations? I'll take that. In Israel, you are correct. It is a little bit trickier if you're under 21 to apply and get a credit card, mainly because you don't have any credit for them to go off on. Typically, I don't have a credit card. I wouldn't even know where to begin with that. But I would imagine it would be can you have a cosigner on a credit card? I don't know, but that's what I imagine the type of situation that it would be. And Rose, you are absolutely correct. There are student credit card accounts. That is a thing. When I first got my bank account, it was a student bank account, and it was great. Yes, Israel, you are right. He said you would need a cosigner, but not just anyone though. Your cosigner has to have good credit as well to be able to be a cosigner for you. So make sure you look into that as well.
We had a question pop in the Q&A, and it was, what are ways to boost credit score without credit cards?
So I went the long way. I did that too. I don't have credit cards. So what I did is I have a cosigner on my car, which really helped me a lot. Repaying my student loan helped me out tremendously when I was getting out of college. Yeah, payments on your student loan will go towards your credit as well. So it was things like that. And like I said, it was slow comings. I'm still building it. So if you don't want to go the credit card route, just be prepared for it to take some time.
so there are a lot of expenses that come with college, but one of the biggest ones is how can you pay for college itself? So we will break that down for you. So how do you get financial aid? So you will have to complete an application to receive financial aid. And there are 2 different applications and you will only have to fill out one of them. So if you have a social security number, you will want to fill out the FAFSA. And if you do not have a social security number, then you will want to fill out the TASFA. So you only have to fill out one. And then the applications both open on October 1st. And you want to fill these out as soon as possible, because the sooner that you fill it out, the more likely that you are going to receive more financial aid. And if you haven't done this yet, then your coach can absolutely help you with that. So we fill out our applications and we want to know what kind of aid is available. So we've broken it up. So we have your free money, the scary loans that don't have to be so scary, and then a work study as well. So for the free money, that's our favorite. So we have scholarships and grants. So scholarships, this is money awarded to students that you apply for, and it's usually based on need, merit, and achievement. So you can get a few scholarships just by filling out the FAFSA or TASFA. There are also outside opportunities. So My Red Kite is a great resource to find scholarships that you might be eligible for that you can apply to get extra money. And then there are grants, and these are awarded to students who qualify based on need. So once you fill out your application, you will find out which grants you are eligible for. And then moving on to loans. So this is the money that you borrow that eventually has to be paid back. And there are different types of loans, so we'll get into that on the next slide. But then we also have work study. So you can apply and say that you want to be eligible for this. And if you are accepted, then that means that you can work a few hours a week for the university, and in exchange, they will give you money to use towards tuition. Okay, so loans, the fun stuff. So we want you guys to borrow smart, because we understand that a lot of people do need to take out loans in order to finish school. So there are 2 different types. So we have our federal student loans and our private loans. And we absolutely want to take out only the federal student loans if we can. And why is because it has a much lower interest rate. So federal student loans, the interest rate is about 2.75%. Whereas for private loans, it's 5% interest rate. So it's a lot more money that you're going to have to pay back later on top of the loan amounts. So just looking at the federal student loans, there are 2 types. So we have the direct subsidized loans and direct unsubsidized loans. So direct subsidized loans, those are the ones that we want to look for. Those do not accrue interest while you're in school. Whereas the unsubsidized loans, or the unfriendly loans, as we call it, those do accrue interest while you're in school. So again, you will have to owe a little bit more money if you take out the unsubsidized loans rather than the subsidized loans. And if you do end up taking out all of your loans and it covers your tuition and everything completely, then you will get that extra money back to you as a refund. But just remember that you still have to pay that back at the end. So we suggest that you only accept exactly what you need, nothing extra. So you fill out your FAFSA or TASFA, you send it to all of your schools, and each school will send you back an award letter. And this is the aid that each school will offer you, and they're all going to be different. So just because one school has a higher tuition does not mean that it's going to be, so higher tuition does not always mean that it's going to cost the most to attend. So here we have just a sample award letter. So we have the tuition, room and board, all of the expenses. So the estimated cost of attendance is $38,400. And then it breaks down all of the aid for you. So you have all your loans, scholarships, grants, and everything. And the total on the bottom, the $28,400, that is how much aid you have been given. So if you see the difference, the 38,400 and the 28,400, that means that the student, in addition to all of their financial aid, will still owe $10,000 or $5,000 per semester. So looking a little further, so in addition to that $10,000 that they still owe, if we look at only the loans that the student takes out, so let's say it is, in this case, $7,500 just for this year, multiply that by 4 years of attending school, that means that the student will be in $30,000 in debt after they graduate. And that's not including interest. And one other thing to note is that you will be filling out these financial aid applications each year. So just because you get this amount for your first year doesn't mean that it's going to stay consistent all 4 years of college. So that's something to look out for. So big question, how do you pay back your loans? So after you graduate, you will have a 6-month grace period. So this means that after your graduation, you have 6 months until you have to start paying back on your loans. And this is great that you have that extra period, but it's still 6 months, even if you do not find a job 6 months after you graduate. So just keep that in mind. Also, there are payment plans available, so you don't have to pay all of your student loans 6 months after you graduate. They'll break it up for you. And as of now, the average student loan payment is $395 per month. And then, like we'd mentioned before, paying those student loans on time, that will help build your credit. And a big note is that you do not want to pay back your student loans using your credit card. And you don't want to do this because you're still going to owe the same amount of money. And then this way you have double the interest. So your student loans and your credit cards. So the quick tips for paying for college is complete your financial aid applications, apply to multiple schools, that way you can see which school will give you the most money, accept all the free money first, accept the subsidized or the unsubsidized loans first, don't accept any loans that you don't need, and then after you graduate, complete your student loans or payments on time. And once you start getting all of your financial aid packages back, this is a great time specifically to utilize your coach so that they can let you know exactly how much money each school will give you. So any questions about financial aid or loans or anything like that?
We had a question pop up in the Q&A, and it was, how long does it usually take to receive your financial aid packages?
That really depends on the school, but around the springtime, that's usually when they'll all start coming in. And it will usually be around the same time, so you can compare them. Great question. Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions about that now, you can ask as we go on, but we will continue.
All right. So next we're going to get into some specifically the big one. We're going to talk about what costs you might face as a freshman, sophomore, and senior in college as well. And Sam will take it over.
Yeah, so a big thing that you guys want to consider your options for is housing. So you have options. So you can either live at home, live on campus, or live off of campus. And there are benefits and drawbacks to each of them. So we'll go through some of those. So living at home, the pros, you're already there. You don't have to move. So no moving costs. Your rent, either you don't have to pay rent or it's a lower rate than having your own apartment. And then you can also share expenses or have a lower cost of expenses for things like your car or food. So some drawbacks to this is that it really limits which schools you can apply to because you have to be local. So that limits your financial aid packages. Also, you may be expected to contribute to the family by either money or chores, and then you also have to consider your commute. So how much money is it going to cost you to get from home to your school every day? And then your next option is living off of campus. So some pros for that is that it's a great budgeting experience. It's usually cheaper than living on campus because you aren't usually right in the heart of the city. And then food can be a lot cheaper than needing to pay for the meal plans that the universities provide for you. So then drawbacks of this, if you're moving to a new place, you have to furnish it. So buying all of those new items for your new house, and then also the deposit. So a lot of places will require first and last month's rent and fees. So let's say your rent is $600, you could possibly need to pay $800 up front just to move into this place. Then you also have to consider your cost of commute with this, since you probably won't be living super close to campus. And even though it is a great budgeting experience, it's all on you to keep track of all of your bills. So your rent, your utilities, your food, all of that fun stuff. And if it's your first time doing it, it could be a little difficult to really keep track of everything at first. And then living on campus. So a pro to this is that your financial aid can most likely be used towards your room and board. So that's already some money that you have to go towards housing. You will not have a long commute. You'll be right there. So you might not even have to pay for a car or a bus or anything like that. And then all bills are paid. So in your room and board, it's your utilities, food, rent, everything is all included. So some drawbacks to this though, is that it can be a lot more expensive compared to off-campus costs, and definitely a lot more expensive than living at home. And even though you can use your loans to pay for this, again, you still owe all of that money back later, plus interest.
Some additional college costs that you might see come along when you are in college is food. So if you're living off campus or at home, you might have to pay for some of the food or all of your food. Many students qualify for SNAP, so that is an option for students to consider. Also, if you're rooming with a bunch of roommates, you can buy in bulk and utilize coupons. And there are also many student discounts that you should look out for food. In terms of tutoring, take advantage of what on-campus options are available first. A lot of those are free or built into the tuition, so you don't have to pay for them. And some other departments might also offer free tutoring services as well. In terms of transportation, it's better to carpool or bike rather than driving to campus and back each day, or keeping a car on campus if you're living on campus. Also look for discounted student transportation in case it does cost to use the buses on your campus. In terms of textbooks, make sure to check out the library first. A lot of the libraries will now keep student textbooks available on each campus. You can also borrow or rent your textbooks. A few options are Amazon or Chegg. And then also look for the PDF versions of the textbook first, because those can be much cheaper compared to a hardback textbook from the textbook store. Also consider some fun options that you might want to pay for while you're in college as well. Ice skating, bowling, going to the movies, it can add up really quickly. So definitely make sure to check out student discounts for college students, as well as looking into low-income options to hang out with your friends. One of the options is a park.
Okay, and now we're going to get into some year-specific costs. So starting off with freshman year, you will have to consider your dorm organization, your bedding, or any other amenities like any fridge and a microwave that might come to dorm. Sophomore, junior year, you might want to start getting involved. You might have to consider any fees that come along with being in Greek life or any other clubs, as well as if you want to study abroad, that will come with some extra costs, of course, as well. And then relocation costs, if you choose to go from living on campus to off campus, you'll have to furnish an apartment or even just consider any additional transportation options because you won't be able to walk to classes anymore. And then senior year, you will have to consider any costs that come with pretty much planning your future. So graduation, cap and gown, senior photos, as well as any interview attire, test score or test costs for the GRE or LSAT, or any graduate, if you're going to graduate school, any application fees as well. But I know this might be a lot, but we do have some tips to help you out. So some tips for freshman year, how to go about either lessening those costs or just how to maintain them. It will start with asking friends and family for moving help or using any secondhand appliances or furnishings. And that secondhand tip, that's probably going to be across the board with anything. Always look to see if you might have somebody in your life or a friend or anyone that experienced what you're experiencing now to see if you can just, borrow an item from them. And then for sophomore and junior year, some recommendations is just to be mindful about how many clubs and organizations you're joining, and if they all have fees, then just being able to plan for that ahead of time. And then if you are considering study abroad, be sure to look for programs that apply your financial aid. A good way to do this is to see if there's any programs that your campus sponsors or that your campus has like a partnership with across the country, wherever you want to end up going, because likely if you're going through your school, your financial aid will carry over. And you'll just be able to pay your regular tuition. But with that too, just budget and pay attention to the costs of living in the country that you're visiting. It can be a lot of pressure to want to do fun things all the time, but just be sure that you have enough money to be able to maintain your quality of life in a different country. And then for senior year, some recommendations, again, borrow when you can. So if you have an older brother, older sister, older cousin, that just recently graduated from that same school, borrow their cap and gown maybe, or when it comes to senior photos, ask your friends and family members to take your senior photos to save some money that way. And additionally, for interview attire, you can always try to see if you can borrow friends or roommates or anyone else's if you're in a pinch. And then of course, for graduate school or any tests, look for fee waivers when applicable. There might be more out there than you think, so you can try to just get the fees here and there that come with graduate applications and tests waived for you. Perfect. And then with that, pit stop number 3. So are there any questions at all about any of these specific costs we just talked about? And also feel free to use this time to just look away from your screen for a second, take a stretch break. We're going to be entering the last section, and it'll be fun. We're going to be talking about budgeting. All right, if not, we can keep going. All right. So we'll be talking about the basics of budgeting, starting off with just a good definition of a budget. which is a statement of estimated income and expenses to create a plan for using your money. And I think the word plan in this definition is the most important because it's pretty much just how to take any income, any money that's coming in and your expenses and how to just be able to manage that money so that it's going to all the places that it needs to go and it's leaving you with a little bit of a cushion just in case anything happens. So it's just a plan. So to be sure that you know exactly where some components of a budget. This is a really good visual that I found and I kind of breaks it up into 3 different categories. So there are the recurring components. So that's your rent. That's anything car related, whether it's your insurance or your car payment. And that's any loan and credit card payments because you want to be able to build up your credit. So those are all items that you will need to pay monthly in order to maintain a certain quality of life, in order to maintain a credit score, in order to maintain your living, anything like that. And then of course there's your essentials. So this is your food, any transportation, and of course savings. I would definitely consider that an essential because future you is a priority as well. And then any other expenses, your entertainment, that's your Netflix, that's your Hulu's, that's your anything that's a subscription. Clothing, of course, if you want to keep up with the latest trends. And then this budget, it grouped utilities into this. So this is, any other housing expenditures. Maybe it's, I would personally include utilities with their recurring payments, but it could also just mean with any housing expenditures, it could mean like dishwasher soap here and there, that kind of thing. But again, feel free to utilize your own categories as well. And then to get into some budgeting tips. The first is going to be identifying your income. And when you are doing this, you want to be sure to underestimate. So this will help you be more careful with spending and it will allow for more savings. And then the second step is going to be to identify your expenses. And when you're doing this, you're going to want to overestimate. So this will help you to underspend and create extra savings. So kind of by engineering this for yourself, you'll be able to have that cushion every month in case anything happens. And then an additional tip is going to be to prioritize your needs over your wants. And going to put in the lovely Maslow's hierarchy right there. Just being sure that you are meeting your psychological safety needs before anything else. So that's your housing, that's your food, your clothing, anything that pretty much just gets you day to day. But with that being said too, your future self is a need. So you can always set a savings goal for yourself if you want to obtain an extra want and then treat yourself down the line. So, of course, there's always going to be those items that are going to make us really, really happy. So if we save up for them down the line, that adds, to our Maslow's hierarchy as well. Definitely in like love and belonging, esteem, probably up towards the top of the pyramid. And then a final tip is going to be for accountability. So once you make your budget and you create a plan for yourself and how you're going to spend your money weekly, monthly, make sure to just create some checkpoints and adjust as needed. So, no week is the same. So if you have an emergency one week, you have to spend an extra however much amount of money. Be sure that you are kind of noting that. And then going forward, maybe you're going to readjust your monthly expenses going like down the line. Next, a good way to start too, we're going to drop this tool in the chat as well as afterwards if you want to check it out for yourself, but it's called Texas Reality Check. And we created a sample for this activity. You just click to the next slide. So basically, you'll just be able to plug in all of your different expenses that you are expected to have, whether it's the next year, or whether it's right now, and it will kind of generate this outcome for you. And it does break it up into categories, as you can see. So for this example, I just assumed as a typical college student, just on behalf of everyone, I said that we're going to be living with our parents. We're going to be helping out with utilities as needed. For food, I said that we were going to do some cooking and some eating out. For clothing, I said we would like to be able to buy occasional new clothes. Streaming services, about $25 per month towards that. And then student loan debt, they calculated the average for a 2-year degree to be about $70 a month. And then for savings, I said that we would like to save about 5% of our income. So that would generate about $78 directly to our savings per month automatically. And so what that calculated to was about $1,600 a month towards our monthly expenses. And so how do we go about managing that? How do we go about meeting that? We're going to go over that in the next slide. So again, if you're kind of feeling like that lion right now, because annually we'll need about $19,596 to meet these expenses. Again, it's about $1,600 monthly. And so our income required for doing that, it's going to be about $22,535, and then monthly, just under $1,900, $1,878. So that being said, those are all of our expenses that we have, and we're already putting a little bit of money into savings. And so you can see with these two different numbers, it's kind of tabulating that we're going to need a little bit more than we actually need to cover our expenses. So that's already creating a cushion for us. So with that being said, we'll have about $245 left over. So again, this money is left over after we've already met all of our expenses. And so we're kind of just going to take you through an activity as to how you can go about budgeting this specific money and how to just manage this in the right way for you, depending on what your goals are. So we can choose our spending destiny. So why don't we start off with spend it? Let's say with the holidays around the corner, we want to just be able to treat ourselves or to treat a family member. So we can drop in the chat too right now. We can choose what we want to spend this $245 on. And I gave you two different options, the Amazon Alexa Series 4 or the Apple Watch Series 3. So if you can drop in the chat, your answer is what you would rather have. Apple Watch, Alexa. Ooh, we need a tiebreaker. Apple Watch. Okay, let's go with that. All right, so our Apple Watch, that's going to cost us $180. That means we'll have $65 left over. Again, we can spend this money, this leftover money too, however we want, whether we want to help out around the household with it or save it for the future. So with that being said, we can go back to our spending destiny. And I saw some people in the chat that said that they would, if it was a little bit too expensive, maybe they would want to save it. So we can go about saving it and start to build an emergency fund for us. So again, this is our $245 left over once we tabulated all of our expenses. So if we go about saving it, or even just saving half of it, which is about $22. That means in 6 months, we'll have about $732 1 year. It would definitely go up. So that just goes to show that what happens when you save your money, don't touch it. All right, we can go back to our spending destiny. And let's say we want to create a goal for ourselves to treat our future selves with something special. This is kind of just showing you how to go about budgeting. So if you're planning for a big expense down the road, let's say we want to take a trip to Oz, of course, which is going to be the museum in Kansas. So I tabulated all the different expenses that would come with taking this trip: a flight, a hotel stay, student tickets, food and transportation, and then any extra spending money that you want to have for souvenirs or anything else. So just calculated that the total cost of this trip was going to be $900. So obviously that's a lot of money up front. But if we want to just think about it from a reasonable standpoint, we can just save $75 per month towards this goal. And in 1 year from December today, we'll be able to travel to Oz. And again, $75 per month in the grand scheme of things, that's not too much when you have a leftover budget of $245. So if you really, really want to go on this trip, it's definitely doable. So we can go to the next slide. So again, budgeting doesn't really come easy at first. once you get the hang of it, you can see how it can be really fun for you. You can be able to treat yourself too. So to help you get started, we do have some helpful budgeting tools. The first is going to be Mint, and that's a free app. You can see everything in one place. So what Susie was mentioning earlier with online banking, this app will track all of your spending and your expenses, so you can see where you want to cut back. And it just, you can connect all of your accounts and you can see your spending and track everything in one place. Second tool, if you want to create your budget manually, it's going to be Google Templates. There's a lot of pre-made budgets to fill in on Google Sheets. And I know a lot of us have Google accounts. So if we just search the template tab, we can be able to just find these budgets and we can plug in our own numbers and it does it for us. And number 3, we're going to link this article in the chat and then as well as afterwards. And this is just an article from the Skim. And it gives you some good savings tips and some things to think about. And one of them is rewarding yourself for good habits. So again, kind of going back to budgeting for that trip, saving money doesn't need to be boring, doesn't need to be hard. We can always save our money towards something fun as well. And number 4 is going to be a weekly budget. This is personally what I use, just because I feel like my days are just so different from one another going, and each day just seems like I have something new that comes up. So if you're like me, I like to have a weekly budget. So whenever a paycheck hits, I'm able to kind of control that paycheck and control where that money specifically is going rather than thinking from a month standpoint. So again, once you start to budget, you'll get your own little niche here and there. But that being said, if any of the panelists have let's just say 1 or 2 tips that they personally use, I know Sam, you utilize Mint, right?
Yeah, so I love Mint. So I have it. It's just an app on my phone. I've linked my Chase card account and then also my credit card. So let's say the beginning of the month, I want to set my budget for coffee, food, shopping, fun, all that stuff. So I set it, and then throughout the month, as I swipe my card, it will automatically notify me, be like, hey, you've spent this amount of your budget for coffee. Like you might want to cut back a little bit, or, oh, you didn't spend anything on entertainment yet. So this is how much you still have for the rest of the month. And then since my credit card is also linked, I can check my credit score on there for free, and it will give me some tips on how to improve my credit score. So totally based on what you set it to, and it's just easy to keep track of exactly which category your money is going.
All right, cool. For the sake of time, we can keep rolling. I know we're a little bit over. Perfect. So some additional resource, you can see that article right there, introduction to financial aid and just paying for college. So you can find some additional tips and tricks on there, as well as, with any other topic that we have posted, financial aid, mental health, anything that might help you out, get to and through college. And then some other additional resources. We have our CoFo Connect app, so feel free to download our app and you can have any of these additional resources and articles on the go in case you have any questions, or if you're just curious about, some different resources that we have on there. It's all kind of categorized into different aspects that you might experience as a college student. And then new this year, you can actually upload your documents like your financial aid and your class schedules and everything, and you can enter our contests to win prizes. So you can track your personal milestones on the CoFo Connect app as well as look at the resources. And then additionally, we'll post some of these similar resources and on social media. So we are on our 4 different platforms right there. Feel free to follow us at College Forward. And finally, we've made it to the end of the yellow brick road. Are there any final questions? And of course, these questions aren't final. You know, you can always ask your coach as well if anything comes up after our webinar. And all of this information will be sent out to all of the attendees as well afterwards. Perfect. If there's not any questions, I will leave you with this quote. And this is from the Scarecrow himself. If one has money without brains, he cannot use it to his advantage, but if one has brains without money, they will enable him to live comfortably until the end of his days. So we all understand that money can definitely be scary, especially a college student, when you're just getting started with your financial journey. But as long as you're able to manage your money and create a plan for yourself, you will be good to go. And your coaches and everyone here at College Forward is definitely here for you. So thank you again for participating in our webinar. It was really fun to make this, and we really hope that you took something away from this, and that you're feeling more confident about spending money and saving money going forward.